one of the characters of the Eastern Cape.
Don't hire a boat of Italians and row off.
The fisherman's pub is round the back of the Kenton Hotel. There's none of the fancy decor and polite conversation that you find on the other side. But it's the right place to go if you want to meet some of the most interesting local characters, like Uncle Stan. He's a fisherman, farmer, but above all, an excellent boat designer. That's what the film crew had heard about, so they came down to film him and his boats. They were warned by the locals that he could be a very difficult man to talk to, so they asked me, I've known Uncle Stan all my life, to act as a go-between and interview him. An interview that proved extremely difficult in the Kenton pub because of constant interruptions.
That thing's disc, we're all going to slip by the time you finish.
On your hand.
Say, Rechamora Siernias. And if I saw back tomorrow.
Keep your hand if you like.
Next time I come in here, I'm going to bring a harmless shark in here. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, bye.
Next morning we walked out to Stan's house. Once the whole area, including the town of Kenton, was part of Butt's farm. I had the feeling that I was walking through a museum of Uncle Stan's life, that each exhibit would reveal a new aspect of his personality, that every old boat and rusted lorry had a story of its own. So many stories are told about Uncle Stan, then retold and elaborated, that he'll probably become a legend.
The one that sticks out very clearly in my mind is the evening we were having a couple of drinks down at the pub, and after a couple of beers, one tends to get a bit rowdy. And the then manager was our Pep Fraser, and he came rushing into the bar and he said, "Look, you guys, quieten it down. The National Party's having a dinner function here tonight." So Stanley asked him, if it was the Nationalist Party from this area, so Pep said, "Yeah." So Stan said, "Well, too. This is something that he's going to sort of take up." So he got into the car, he went up to the farm, and he got his set of bagpipes off the wall. And he brought them down, he pumped them up in the pub, and he walked into the dinner function playing Sorry Mary on the bagpipes. There was just a complete halt to the discussion. They threw him out. He came back in again playing the same tune. He loves to give any politician or any of that type of thing. He loves to, ride it a little bit.
I'd heard stories that would make that one sound tame. But when I asked Uncle Stan, he said they were mostly rubbish. Everything bad that happens in Kenton, he said, gets blamed on the bus. One very dramatic story was about an ship that ran aground in 1896. His grandfather had swum out and rescued the entire crew. He seemed to make light of even a feat like that.
Early in the morning, and there was low mist on the beach towards the west, and he saw masts sticking out above the mist. Well, he knew immediately that there was a boat ashore there. And he tried to reach the ship with the boat. But this thing got capsized in the surf, so eventually he swam to the ship. And he got a rope. And they managed to get that to shore, and then they dug a hole in the sand, and they buried this wood with a rope around it. And these guys on the ship, of course, they had winches, they tightened the rope. Oh. And the crew made themselves out of a big raft there, and the whole lot pulled themselves ashore on the rope. They brought the cat with them as well. The ship's captain. There's a lot of wild cats running around Kenton still. There's still descendants of those.
Oh, that's good.
Those cats are roaming all over the place.
Charles Butt received a citation for bravery from the Royal Humane Society. Records confirm that he was 65 years old and he had swum out in a bitterly cold and high surf. Of course, popular history has dramatized the events.
I don't know what history book they're talking about. I've never read any of these history books. I read a little piece, somebody wrote a history of place at Kenton-on-Sea, and they mentioned that grandfather and Wood in 1863 carved their names out on a rock in a cave, and they say in the book since obliterated, but it's still there. People write stuff, and they're guessing half of it.
The sand dunes south of the Bushman's River expose part of the wreck of the Norwegian ship from time to time. Like Uncle Stan's yard, they form a sort of natural museum. Uncle Stanley is well known on this part of the coast for building catamarans. His early designs were 25-foot ski boats. These were the first successful catamarans designed and built in this country.
Well, the first catamaran my grandfather built, which is this one here.
This one here. So is that your grandfather there?
That's my grandfather in the back here, and that's my father and an uncle of mine.
So that was the first one built in South Africa?
Yeah.
Uncle Stanley is always designing on the back of a cigarette box. His first attempt at a catamaran cracked because the sea puts incredible pressure on the two hulls. In Hawaii, where they've been using catamarans for centuries, the section between the two hulls is flexible. In a modern fishing boat, the deck has to be rigid. Uncle Stan solved this problem by joining the hulls with a supporting arch, which is now known as the tunnel design. This 45-foot boat is still maneuverable and light enough to negotiate the shallow Karratha River mouth. It's what Stan designed to hold more fish. It's also more comfortable for a man of his age. I asked what other boats he designed.
17, 18, 20, 25, 36, and a 45.
If you made a bigger boat than that, could you get it out the river still?
Yes, I'd like to.
How much bigger?
You could go from 45 up to 65. You wouldn't have much more draft in it. It would be the same. Maybe another 0.3 of a meter.
He took us up the river, back to his farm, to what I call his personal museum.
There's a piece of my original boat lying here. Piece of my very first boat lying there.
Is this the first one that didn't have the...
Very first one I had, yeah. You know, everybody thought of flat things those days.
Yeah.
And you started getting cracks. Eventually you start putting bits of wood on it and more glass, but it doesn't work. You have to have something reed and round.
Where do you get most of your orders from? How do people know about you?
Just by word of mouth. One has seen another one. Chap gets a boat from us and he goes up to Transvaal, say, and there other boys see it and they say, well, I also like a boat like that. And they come to us from all over the country, Walvis Bay.
Do you advertise at all?
No. Yeah, we had an advert once in one magazine, 1976 or somewhere around there. But I don't think it made any difference because we were selling them just as fast before the advert. That's what we did afterwards.
Look, he's got much better. At one stage, you literally had to beg him for a boat. You know, you couldn't just get a boat from him. He had to like you a lot, and you sort of like had to really want a boat desperately before he'd build it for you.
I think if he had marketed well, yeah. He's got a modern outlook, I think, in a lot of ways. But I think he'd he'd marketed his things better. He would have been. If you take a look at how many boats you can travel from Cape Town right up to Durban, probably into Mozambique. I know there's 2 boats in the Comoros now operating that are 20-foot butt catch. He's marketed, sold hundreds of those boats, hundreds of them.
Well, I should say, Stan's competitors do not try and paint a good, they say, hell, they slap their boats together. But it's jealousy. They do make the finest catamaran. It's his design, and nobody can take it away from him. They can add the frills, but it's his design.
Sure.
And I reckon that people must give it to him.
I don't think he had any intention of selling boats as a business because he built himself a boat and then some guy came along and said, well, can you build me one as well? And so that's how it basically started. I suppose you could have built this business up into something quite big, but I don't think the old man or John are interested in going into big time. And I think he's more interested in enjoying his life and doing what he wants to do.
2 suave gentlemen came down from the Comoro Islands to speak to Stan. They wanted a 45-foot pleasure boat. They wanted it fitted throughout with glitter and stainless steel. And they wanted to beach it on the sand. Stan's design was ideal, but they had difficulty imagining the fishing boat with the glossy finish they wanted. When they asked for the plans of the boat, and Uncle Stan began drawing them out in the sand, they looked visibly dismayed.
And when he asked for the plans, the old man said to him, "No, I haven't got any plans for this boat." He said, "Well, how did you design it?" He said, "On the back of my cigarette boxes." He said, "I've thrown them away a long time ago." So even that boat there was built without any sort of real planning, because he's not a naval architect or anything. He's just built off out of his own mind. And he's got the ability to change what's in his mind into materialistic shape.
The origin of the whole mold would come out of his brain, because he doesn't use a tape measure for anything. It's almost like he can see something to scale in his mind. The finished product comes from his hand, working that creed stone and that plaster himself, and he gets the most incredible lines with no tape measure, no line, nothing.
So that is, it's ground, yeah, you can't damage the propeller there.
So you mean if the boat had gone to sandbank, the bottom of the boat would hit, but the propellers would be protected?
Yes, you could just go park it on the sand.
Once you've built the boat and it's ready to go out on the water, how do you get it out there?
This wall is put here to keep it tight when going in here. And when you take it out, we just knock this wall down. And then we have the gate that we put across here. See, there's a lip down here. We have a gate that fits against this lip. And we pump this whole place full of water. And the water goes right up into the mold, and you lift the boat up and you float it out.
Stan's craft was designed and finished as a fishing boat. It had to operate out of a narrow and shallow river mouth, to be as comfortable as possible in rough weather, and to get to the fishing grounds quickly. To see it in action, we had to wait for a break in the weather. And wait we did.
Entirely opposite of what they said on TV last night. Entirely opposite of TV is going to be northwest today. Shipping course, that's east. Anyway, you get the regional ones that may even contradict that.
It took 6 days. Either the swell was impossible, or it was blowing a gale. Other small fishing boats had gone out for a day at a time, but, as Uncle Stan predicted, none of them came back with a worthwhile catch.
No, turn west tomorrow. Probably won't blow. There's no gale blowing on. There's no heavy winds tomorrow.
Clearing partially tomorrow.
And the barometer's dropping there. It's got to turn west.
After all the waiting, he arrived at the quay at last with fuel and ice for the trip. He hoped to stay out from 2 to 4 days. Only then did we discover that there was no space on board for the film crew. 16 men would be sleeping on board, and there were only 2 small cabins. Many boat builders have copied Uncle Stan's designs, and that never seemed to bother him. He said it was the only sensible design, so what else could they do? Then a manufacturer patented his design. He made an exact mold for one of Stan's boats and submitted it as his own. That meant that Uncle Stan couldn't build his own boats anymore. He and his son Charles had to take the manufacturer to court. For a man of his age, to spend several days and nights at sea, in rough, cramped quarters, is remarkable. He does it by his own choice. The sea, he says, is a lie. It's always moving, always different. The land is dead by comparison. Remember, Stan and his crew don't use trawls. Each of these reef fish are pulled up separately, by hand, off the shallow reefs on a baited line. That's one of Stan's 25-foot ski boats. They hadn't managed to catch much.
think he enjoys fishing. I think basically that's foremost in his life. I know when I took a boat out myself, it's such a thrill. It's excitement, and I think that's what he enjoys, is the excitement of going out and catching fish. And every day is different.
Before, they started building the 20-footers and actually had outboard motors. His mother and his father. His mother used to sit in the back of the boat and sort of almost act like a cox type of thing, and they used to plough through the waves in one of these old cutters with the oars. They used to row out there. I mean, those days, you don't get into a boat and go out and row through the belly breakers. They used to do that. It comes from a very tough school, I think. There's a sense of charisma attached to Stanley, in a lot of ways. If you take a look what he's done in Kenton over the years, I mean, the bowling green is there because he decided one day that Kenton should have a bowling green. He went down there and he leveled it all down. He started a school down here. He was born in what is now known as the Kenton Hotel. He's done a hell of a lot for everyone around here. He has that he's the salt of the earth type of person.
2 days later, we heard that Stan was coming back on the tide. We were ready on the quay with his son Charles to welcome him. I thought he'd be exhausted after 48 hours on a pretty high swell. Not he, said Charles. He comes alive at sea. If he's got a big catch, he'll be full of the joy.
Millions of sardines, porpoises, gannets, diving, killer whales, everything was there. You would have had film there that very seldom could be seen. Some terrorist attacks to show you. But the head and bodies and sharks, yeah, that's he was full of sharks, eh? Bit off tackle and sinkers and what kind of sharks? Ragatous, all kinds. Leaving us with the heads and the body. Terrorists. Don't only get terrorists on land, you get them out at sea as well. Our security wasn't too good. Yeah, another one, look at it. You hear these stories about the one that got away. But this is where part of one got away. Oh, you would have had some film. I don't think many photographers would have had that chance of seeing everything in one day. Millions of birds diving down like rain, like a hailstorm. And millions of sardines. By the way, these are the sardines that will land up on the Natal coast. Yeah, in April, May already, May, June, they reach up there. They're moving up the coast. Thousands of porpoises, sharks, and what you name it. But there's masses of your echo sound is absolutely black with sardines. And these things, when you cut them open, they're full of sardines as well. Right. This is each crew as I caught. You can see some do better than others,
Uncle Stan is a highly respected member of his society. He's a justice of the peace for the area. But he often finds himself at loggerheads with authority.
There's been numerous occasions where he's had run-ins with the councillors, especially with his boat, and had letters coming up here saying that you must remove the boat within 7 days and so forth, and he just ignores it. And then they send another letter saying, well, we're going to have to get the police to take action, so he ignores that as well. And then he goes down there and tells them what they should have done. And that his boat is perfectly legal, it's licensed. In fact, it's licensed in such a way that it's got more of a right to be on that river than most of the speedboats have. There's one thing he can't handle, and that's not red tape as such, but people who are full of self-importance. And that just doesn't enter into he can't sort of comprehend the fact, he can't tolerate them, because he actually realizes the fact that these guys they seem to think that they can control, but there's no way they control him, because it doesn't work that way.
Look, Philip the Fry.
Nicest? Philip the Fry, yes.
I'm going to get you a young shellback. That would be the nicest. A fine one. And the problem's on with the days. What do you want to say? Actually, I myself prefer a young cob to any other fish that we want.
There's a young one as well.
These shellbacks are dry fish. It's an overrated fish, shellback. People say, oh, they want a shellback. Here's a nice one, and the one you put there, and they take those two out there. That is just the right sizes. Very much tastier. They're juicier fish than the shellback. Shellbacks are dry fish. Where do you want them? I'll put it for you.
I don't know, give it to me. I'll get my hands into this.
There's quite a few. You need more than that.
Who could like that?
There's quite a few. You need more than that. Find one another one there. What's somewhere else?
When he has come up against the authorities, does he usually win his battle, or?
He normally wins, but there's not. I mean, let's put it this way: he's not in total disregard of the law. There is a bit of give and take on both sides, but invariably he'll do most of the taking, and the authorities will do most of the giving.
And this that and the other, but weight for weight, a shellback will give any game fish a go for fighting. He fights right from the bottom to the top, and when he's on the boat, he's still flapping. You've got to hit him on the head with a stick to get the hook out his mouth. You people didn't show your cob. What's your cob?
People that live in Kenton think that for a man of his age now he must start calming down, but he doesn't. He's getting younger every day, and sometimes you get a bit perturbed about it, because this guy is backing the establishment and he's your father, and it sometimes gets a bit out of hand.
That car park there's a notice up there. Speed limit 6 knots. And I came in there one day and I was fooling around, putting this thing into reverse, going a bit further forward. Bloke asked me, Stan, what the hell are you up to, man? I said, what, man, the tide's running at 6 knots. I'm trying to keep this boat at 6 knots. How the hell can you have 6 knots speed when the tide is doing more than 6? This is my last of the 60s. And I have to stand and all these things up. I've got a month to go and I'm 70, so I don't know what I'm going to do between the 70s and 80s. I don't know. I just hope they don't get any bigger, because they're heavy enough now.